For more on this, we are joined by Einar Tangen on U.S.-China trade relations, senior fellow, content advisor at the Taihe Institute in Beijing, and I would call a friend. Hi, Einar. What's going on here? Is Boeing right?
Well, yeah, definitely trade relations. I mean, there's a cost to the U.S. containment policies against China. I mean, the technology issue is there. I mean, China tries to buy avionics packages and jet engines from the U.S., and those are under scrutiny. China just can't afford exposure to the U.S. because you don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, in Russia, Boeing and Airbus cut off spare parts and maintenance, so that has a big issue. But Phil, what's really at stake here is 1/4 of the world's industry, airplane industry, is China, and we're expecting to be seeing about $1.5 trillion worth of sales. That's about 8,000 planes, according to Boeing, over the next 20 years. If Boeing loses out on that, that's really tough, and especially as we're heading into a recession. It'd be really nice to have those orders, keep those factories moving.
Right, and just to put this in perspective, both Boeing and Airbus have been fighting over China before we ever met. So it's been a long time, and China has bought planes from both companies into the billions and billions. In fact, I believe China is the #1 customer for really both companies for the most part. And Airbus has a assembly plant in China. I know Boeing has a final assembly or delivery plant in China. So they've both invested a lot of money. So this order goes to Airbus. So what?
So what? I mean, as I said, Phil, when you're heading into a recession, the idea that you have an order like that's going to keep the factories going is really huge. Boeing will not. There's going to have to be a major readjustment. They're still trying to recover from the MAX deal. It's really, really bad news for Boeing. I mean, China had been very careful to balance their purchases, basically 50-50. Now that has changed, and on the horizon, Chinese-made planes. So, they're still technologically behind the times, but they're going to be delivering actual airplanes fairly soon. And if you start looking over the next 20 years, that could have a real impact on both Boeing and Airbus. But this might be the end of Boeing in China.
Well, I know. Let's pretend you were advising Boeing for just a moment. What would you tell them to repair or fix whatever's going on here?
All right. Well, there's two sides to it. First, on a technical issue, they have to make their planes more efficient. Airbus is more efficient. Obviously there's a lot of stigma with the MAX issues. So they have to put out a really good plane. It's the product. Second, they have to figure out how they and other businesses, I mean, car industry, cosmetics, you name it, consumer goods, how they can get the government in line with this idea that China does not have to be the enemy, especially when you need its markets. Without these markets, they're not replaceable. This isn't a situation where you say, well, just go to India and sell the same stuff. This is a major part, and this airline deal really kind of throws that into sharp relief.
And of course, Airbus, represents a big swath of the industrial complex for Europe. Does this represent perhaps a little bit of a twist and turn towards Europe, despite all the clouds that are overhanging from the conflict that's happening with Ukraine?
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, the relationship with Europe is better than with the U.S. There's also this issue, the euro is weaker, although I don't know how much hedging they can do over a 20-year period or over this next period when they're going to have delivery. But they also have, the group buying discounts, the existence of an assembly plant. I mean, Boeing has a paint plant here, so it's really just kind of very final touches, whereas Airbus has invested more heavily. That's a surefire signal to at least the Chinese side that Airbus is more committed here than Boeing, and especially given the geopolitical situation with the U.S. It's just very hard to have somebody kicking you at the same time that
right.
I want you to buy from me.
When the Trump sanctions and the tariffs, I should say, first came about, there was a lot of talk how terrible things were going to be and how awful things were. And I get the media debate here, but the fact is that since then, trade between the U.S. and China is either at or near an all-time high between both sides. Give me something
Yeah.
positive about this relationship that maybe the general media isn't talking about.
Well, the general media is talking about inflation, and I'm not saying that's positive, but it's a reality check. Already you're hearing about getting rid of the tariffs from the U.S. side simply because they have to deal with inflation. And I think that's going to figure largely. We're heading into a recession. People do not want to hear about higher costs or ideological things like that. They're concerned about their pocketbook and having jobs. I mean, this has a real impact on American
Right.
industries. Jobs did not flood back into the United States. The deficits got higher. The more that the U.S. pushed these price issues, it just did not work. So it's time to face reality, get back to the bargaining table, realize that China has a different path to its prosperity, and simply let's do trade and get over this.
Yeah. Let's end it on that positive note. Einar, good to see you, my friend.